While the ongoing pandemic has posed huge challenges for us at PVPA to stay connected as a community of students and artists, our becoming familiar with how to do that while not together physically has actually opened doors. The Visual Art and Technical Theater Department has taken this opportunity to reach out to a network of artists that extends far beyond our region. Each week we'll be talking with a different artist who will share stories of their path to and through the arts. And in doing this, our students will get a chance to see where the work that we do at PVPA might lead them in the future.
I am very happy to welcome our guest, who is a PVPA alumni, and I was very much amused by his work with the acclaimed duo Juggalicious back in the day. They were a staple of the open mics and absolutely hilarious. And I'm happy to see that Alex's funny bone has not waned. So, Alex Clark, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks. I'm really excited to see people I know in video form. This it's a blast from the past. PVPA was definitely a strong start, so it's exciting to be here.
So I would love to, start us off with just asking you to go back in your memory banks, back to what got you going as a creative artist, and really, I mean, maybe even back to what drew you to PVPA and how that sort of provided a foundation for the rest of your life.
I told Martin before the call that I originally went to PVPA because I found out a cute girl went there. He said, and I said, I think I need a better answer. And he said, no, that's a great answer. Tell the truth. So the only reason I went to PVPA is because I saw some cute girl in, what was that show? Little Shop of Horrors. And I was like, who's she? And then I saw in the bio she went to PVPA. I don't remember who the girl was. I never talked to her when I got to PVPA. But that is the reason I ended up there. And it ended up being fantastic. I made so many friends and found so many creative outlets that helped me grow. But ended up being a good decision.
Right on. And just if you could walk us through sort of what happened after you left, the most of no one in our audience today, save our staff, would remember the old school building and the five facilities, because we're all in one nice, neat little building now. But after you passed through the halls of PVPA, what did you do next? And then, how did that guide you to where you're at now?
Let's see. So me and a couple other people started a comedy troupe called Headgear. Is Headgear still a thing?
It is one of the few things from that era that still continue to this day.
That's so crazy. We were the first year we started that. God, I'm older than Jesus. So back in the Old Testament, we created Headgear, and we used to meet at this guy Alicia Ziafi's house and write sketches that were hilarious, we thought. And I think the first show we did was over 4 hours long. We were like, let's keep everything. There's no such thing as bad art. So from there, I got interested in comedy. And then I had an English teacher who, Brian Smith, I don't think he's still around anymore, is he?
No.
And he told this story. He was like, yeah, I was a street performer juggler. And then I met this girl at a wedding that was from Canada. And I drove and I took a bus up there. And this is before the internet. So I looked up every name in the phone book to find this cute girl I met at a wedding. And I just started going door to door. And then I finally found her, this girl that I hit it off with at the wedding. And she answered the door and she's like, oh, let me go get my husband. He's here too. And I was like, oh my God, me and Brian are the same. I need to learn how to juggle. So that's how I got into juggling. And then I started, just kept performing and kept climbing up that mountain.
I'm seeing a theme here.
Yeah. Did you ever hear that story from Brian?
No.
Yeah, he took a bus to Canada and went door to door through the phone book looking for this girl he spent one night talking to.
Right on. So all right. So after PVPA,
Yeah.
what was your next step in your creative journey?
I went to Emerson College and kept performing, and I just kept finding that I didn't like working for other people. I remember I worked at Old Navy for like 2 months, and I got let go because I would like literally lay on the floor because I was so out of my mind bored. Like during work hours when people are shopping, I'd be laying on the floor folding clothes while people were looking at tanks and stuff. So I realized I had to work for myself. And then I started performing more and finding that performing paid better than just like whatever menial jobs I could get at the time. And so I kept going down that path. But it was really important. I think if you want to get into the arts, that you have to be a self-motivator and find work for yourself to do. If you don't have that, it's going to be really hard to make it, I think.
So when you say you were performing, what were your first gigs?
A lot of juggling at like ski resorts and colleges, and then a lot of open mics. I did a lot of fairs, and you never know like what thing is gonna put your career in the right direction. I remember we spent all this money on this mailing before the internet. We got these folders made with DVDs. Oh my God, I sound so old. Is this a talk or is this an intervention with how old I am? So we spent loads of money on these packets that were like $10 a packet, and we mailed out a bunch of them, spent our last couple $1,000 on it, and never heard anything from it. And then 3 years later, a guy called and he was like, "Hey, I've had your packet on my desk for 3 years, and we need someone next week. Can you help us?" And that's how we got hired from that. And we had, as far as we were concerned, we thought that attempt at trying something was a total failure and we lost a lot of money. But because we sent that out 3 years later, we got this 10-day gig. And then from that, we got an agent that got us gigs for years. And it was from something that we thought was a total failure. So I guess the lesson learned is like, you never know what opportunity is going to come from where.
That's a great lesson there.
Yeah.
One of our students who's here is applying to Emerson, and he's
cool.
Asking for any advice about that. And I, as someone who went to school down the street from there, I actually did a lot of work at the Emerson Majestic on some of the shows there. But if you could share a little bit about your experience, what going to school there was like for you.
Don't stress out on applying. I remember after I got in, one of my English teachers, or English teacher maybe, or film theory teacher, she had been an admissions person that like picked people to get into the school. And she just put everyone on blast saying like, everyone stresses out, but like all we got was like stupid skateboarding videos. And like, it's not that hard to get in. You just have to try. So like, I remember when I applied, I was like, I'm not good enough. I'm not going to make it. And then I remember after her saying that, I was like, oh yeah, it's just like putting in the effort that counts more than the actual end product. It's just putting yourself out there and trying, I think. I remember we started before YouTube, we started within the first week of school, we started a TV program that ran on the school channel. And a lot of opportunities came from that as well. And that was like, again, self-motivation. We got really bored with going to the orientation events. So we just started this TV show and kept doing it every day, and we're obsessed with it. And I think that obsession led to success.
So how did you get started in animation?
Right. So I remember when I was a kid, one of the first things I was good at was drawing. And then when I was first starting out on YouTube, everyone was doing videos, and I was like, there has to be a way to stick out. I guess I'll try animation because I used to be good at that as a kid. And then I posted my first video, and I went from like 50 views to 50,000 views in a video. And I was like, I guess I have to learn to draw again. And then it just kind of self-taught from there.
Um, I'm told I'm supposed to ask you about Chinese laundry.
Oh, that was the name of the show at Emerson, Chinatown Laundry. I went, who knew that? My mom? No.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I think if you go on YouTube, you can maybe find a clip, but I'm not 100%. Proceed at your own risk.
So when you first started working or sharing your work in YouTube, you know, I'm really curious about what your expectations were of that, and if you went in there thinking that this was just a fun way to share your work, or if you already had like aspirations about it turning into your career. Like how did you begin, and when did it start to shift for you?
Right. So I started doing YouTube because I love performing and doing stand-up and shows. And so I did YouTube as a way to build a fan base so that people would buy tickets to see me. And so that was always the goal with it. And then as it took off and became its own thing, I think I answered your question, didn't I?
Yeah.
Yeah, I did. I've got Zoom brain. I'm sorry.
No, that's all right. You know, so I guess, I mean, as someone who, you know, when I first saw YouTube, I was pretty much my first experiences with YouTube were looking over students' shoulders when they're supposed to be working and watching some of the stuff that they were distracted by. And I have to be honest, my first impressions of what was there was like, felt like a lot of junk. And I think the thing that for me like changed my perspective about YouTubing was actually watching the doc Please Subscribe. And just like for me, suddenly it instantly clicked that this became this was a medium that was allowing the public to decide what they valued, rather than a few executives or producers that get to decide whether a project gets funded or aired or not. And so that totally changed my perspective. And you know, I'm in listening to you talk about it first being a way for you to try to connect with more of an audience, and then at some point, you know, as more, you know, I'm wondering now, like, most of your effort is focused on the YouTube more than the touring, right?
This year, definitely. We did we did our first tour last year, and that went really well. But this year, it's just been focusing on the videos, and we released a card game as well. One thing I'll say about YouTube is same thing as with performing. You just, whatever you choose, you have to be relentless about it and just do it again and again. I remember the thing that made my YouTube channel explode wasn't even a video. It was there was a convention coming up, and so I coordinated with a couple of other YouTubers that had animation channels that we'd have these tote bags that said Animation Squad on them, and it had our avatars and our channels on there, and we gave them away at VidCon. And because we did that, it blew up all of our channels together, because people saw us as this one entity, and just because we wanted to give away tote bags. And if we didn't do that, I don't know that we'd ever would have exploded like we did.
I'm getting another nudge to ask you about Sugar Heist.
So Sugar Heist is our card game that we released. It was a Kickstarter. The internet's crazy, man. You can do whatever you want. It's really hard, but the only thing stopping you is PlayStation 5, I think, really. That's what stops me, but yeah. We developed the whole thing, released it, and sold, I think, 2,000 copies. So that's been a journey for sure.
Does anyone want to ask some questions of Alex?
Yeah, about performing or getting started or what Martin looked like 15 years ago. He looked exactly the same, honestly. Is it weird? I got a question for you, Martin. Is it weird being a teacher and seeing all these kids, what they look like 20 years later? That would blow my mind, I think.
It's pretty awesome. Actually, we've had, you're the third PVPA alumni to join us for one of these talks. And then one of the others was actually a student of mine when I first started teaching at the school prior to PVPA. So, you know, we were talking to a student who has been on just like major international tours and doing crazy, like high, like massive scale production work. And you know, so it's totally amazing to be watching, you know, someone who I was, you know, building sets on the floor of a stage with very minimal equipment, who's now doing like this amazingly high tech stuff work. And you know, so that it's pretty amazing to see like where people have gone with their you know, their work after I've worked with them. So
yeah, it's you just have to keep trying, basically. Like, you're gonna fail constantly, and you just have to keep going, and you'll get there, I think.
Do we have any serious questions other than whether I had a mullet or not back in the day?
I think you rocked those awesome dreads, if I remember correctly.
That was that. It's kind of the same deal, just a little longer.
Yeah.
And I haven't been keeping up on shaving due to the, you know, fact that no one sees me except for once a week.
Last month, I tried to see how long I could only shave half my face until my wife noticed, and I made it 2 weeks.
I'm not talking about sending out.
So that's what I've been up to, guys. This is the success you have to look forward to.
You know, as we're trying to forge our own ways, you know, beyond PVPA, and especially as someone who, you know, realized that you needed to be self-employed and take care of yourself. Like, what were some of the biggest obstacles and frustrations that you hit along the way? And then, you know, how did you work through or past that?
Frustrations. I think frustrations for me come from working. When you work with other people, you have no idea what's going to happen. Like, I used to have a 2-man act, and then that guy quit, and then I had another 2-man act, and that guy quit. And then I've had a bunch of animators I've worked with who are all still really good friends, but they've moved on to do other things. And so I think the most frustrating thing is who you can rely on. And at the end of the day, I think or who you should even choose to work with. And at the end of the day, I just think it comes down to, who do you like hanging out with? Because you never know what's going to happen. So just choose people that you think enriching your life just in general, or you enjoy hanging out with, and enjoy the ride.
So when we were in communication, I think now like a year and a half ago, or it might have been even longer, you sent me a picture of your new office space and your staff. So how many people are you working with now in terms of and then, you know, one thing I would love to hear is, you know, how does the process work for you to create one of your YouTube videos? If you could walk us through sort of like from concept to how we get to putting it up there on the internet and waiting for people to check it out.
After 10 years of doing it, I can't believe I still have ideas. But as far as process, I would say up until March or maybe April, I had 5 or 6 people working for me. And then just because of the pandemic, coordinating with that many people just became impossible remotely. So we scaled it back. Right now I have 2 people, or actually 3. I have a guy in Brazil, a guy in Italy, or a girl in Italy, and a girl in Alabama. And that, I think, just goes to show you that even you guys watching right now, you could be doing professional work if you had a portfolio to support it. With the internet, it's like totally possible for you to get a job doing anything you want if you have the skills to back it up. And just because there have been people for you guys watching that I didn't think were good enough, and then they weren't exactly a good match for what we needed, but they stayed consistent in contacting us and their quality improved. And so eventually some of those people I did end up working with when the time was right. So our process is I'll lay down a script, then I'll record all the audio. Then we have, I've been very relentless on making it as efficient as possible to produce our videos. So we have a library of like 500 backgrounds and 150 characters that I can pull from. So I'll put all that stuff in place, kind of like templates, before I pass it off to the animators, and then we'll get like a 5-minute video done in like 3 or 4 days, maybe at that point.
Can I ask what are the various sort of tools and programs that you have in just like in executing these things?
So for animation, we do everything in Toon Boom Harmony, just because I love how diverse the tools are in that program. There's incredible stuff in there. Like you can drag down a walk cycle onto a character so it's ready to walk right away. You can like have complex animations where like a guy jumps in the air, already all pre-animated, and you can drag and drop it. And that's all stuff we custom built. The possibilities for animation with that program are superior to anything I've ever found. So that's why we use that. And then for editing, I do everything in Final Cut just as a personal preference. And those are the 2 main programs I use. I think for me, inspirations come not from necessarily like a person, but off of a moment. As I said that, I had a great example and now I can't think of one. But I just find when people do things that are incredibly nice, I'm like, oh my God, I want to be more like that. I'm not a nice person. I need to be more nice. And I've found that anytime someone has just been incredibly nice, I've wanted to work with them more. And so I always try to emulate that in what I do.
So one person asked the question, was it hard to start a YouTube channel?
Oh yeah, and don't start one now. It's impossible. You guys should it's way easier to build an audience on TikTok right now. The only reason I haven't been there is I'm old and I don't want to figure it out. No, that's not it. But what TikTok does that YouTube doesn't is it delivers your videos to an audience for you. So you don't have to figure out how to get people to click on your video. All you have to figure out is how to make an engaging video. And just in general, when you're building content for social media, like, yes, you have to entertain the person watching, but your top priority is always doing what the platform you're making content for wants you to do. So on TikTok, they want you to make people watch to the end and watch repeatedly. On YouTube, they want you to have a 60% watch time, and they want you to have a thumbnail that people want to click. So like this might sound repetitive to some people, but it's so important to make content that serves the platform before it serves the audience member, because that is what delivers your content to the person that you want to see it. So you have to make the mailman happy before you make the recipient.
Thank you.
And just to speak to the niceness thing, I said, I know I told you guys about those folders we mailed out and finally got a gig from it. The reason we got an agent from that gig is on the last day, there was this trailer that all the entertainment for that event was hanging out in, and their water cooler was out of water. And so I was like, you know what, we're leaving for the run, but we snuck back and we brought like 20 gallons of water to the trailer. And then we later found out that all the 10 entertainers in that trailer had the same agent. And the agent found out that we did nice shit, like crap stuff like that. And he hired us because he got such reports of how nice we were. So I guess I inspire myself too. But yeah, just be kind, I think.
Yeah, I think we've that's been a message we've heard a little bit over some of our discussions, is to make sure you're someone that people want to work with.
100%.
Yeah.
I recently saw, it's on Netflix right now, the documentary about Nightmare Before Christmas that Tim Burton made. I had no idea, but he was that's not related to this at all. But anyways, it's good and you guys should watch it. It's inspiring.
I have a question for you. What's your, since you mentioned films, what's your favorite film?
The first thing that pops into mind is Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind, just because it's so crazy. It stars Jim Carrey. It's a pretty serious movie where people that are in love try to erase memories of each other, and it's great. I also, if you are into comedy, I recently watched something on Netflix called A Futile and Stupid Gesture, which was about Doug Kenny, who created National Lampoon magazine, and how that spun off so many comedy careers and like started SNL and a bunch of other stuff. And it was just like an insight into the comedy world that was pretty inspiring, and I had no idea took place.
What was your favorite class at PVPA?
Do they still let students teach classes? When I went to PVPA, they let students teach classes, and I taught a juggling class. I'd say that was my favorite class. Will you do YouTube forever? That's a good question. So, like I said earlier, I started YouTube to kind of promote my comedy. And then we went on tour last year and we did pretty good. Like we did 23 cities and they all sold out. But one thing I found from doing that was that the people didn't really know what to expect, or that I was a comedian, or that I performed. And so what we learned from that is like, we have to make it way more clear in the videos that I'm a performer first and a YouTuber second. And so the plan was to kind of interweave clips of performing, kind of like in Seinfeld episodes, how Seinfeld would do stand-up at the end of every episode. But then because of COVID, we had to put that idea on pause. But I think moving forward, like the goal would be to transition more into performing and have that be more known for my YouTube presence.
All right, cool. We got lots of questions rolling in now.
Great.
So how did you start voice acting?
Just from having to make the videos, I would say. And it's God, it's got to be so challenging to be a voice actor now, just because it's so easy to find people. But again, it comes down to, it's more about friendships than talent. It's all about who you know and where you apply your efforts, I would say, more than skill. Because you know, when I was a kid, you're like, oh, there's a guy that can do a Winnie the Pooh impression. That's amazing. But now with the internet, you realize that there's like a guy in every zip code that can do a Winnie the Pooh impression. So it's more about the friendships you build and being easy to work with, I would say.
The next question was the favorite person that you've collaborated with.
I would say that the coolest thing I've done recently is me and the YouTuber The Odd Ones Out did this parody event where after Logan Paul did his boxing match, James and I did a chess boxing match. And we rented out this huge 1,000-seat theater, and we got a boxing ring, and we had a former WWE wrestler teach us how to box, and had a live band with like theme songs and stuff. And it was like the coolest experience of my life for sure.
Awesome. Another question is, they're curious about the financial end of being a YouTuber and whether you're a starving artist or not, and if you're able to sustain yourself through that.
You can definitely sustain yourself through YouTube once it takes off. It's a lot harder with animation because animation is way more expensive to produce than live video. But I've never been a starving artist. I think just because I work so hard maybe, but like I didn't come from like the richest family and I didn't have people paying my rent for me or anything, but I was never at a point where I was like having to stand on the side of the street for money. And I think it just comes from a really strong work ethic and there was this book I read called Rich Dad, Poor Dad, which is a great read. It kind of gives you ideas on how to think about money that help you have a secure financial background. And I really loved that book, Rich Dad, Poor Dad. But I think the short answer is, yeah, if you apply yourself and work hard and have a business mind, you will not be a starving artist.
It's a funny question. Did your sister ever get that picture with Bill Murray?
No, she didn't. So I made this video about how my sister's phone got stolen and she had this picture of Bill Murray on it. And I said, do not call this phone number if you're anyone but Bill Murray. And so the only person that called was 6,000 people pretending to be Bill Murray. So I have a voicemail box full of thousands of people pretending to be Bill Murray, and I have no idea if Bill Murray actually called the line. That's how that ended.
So, and there's some other questions that are rolling in that actually have me kind of wondering, you know, after watching a number of the things, like a lot, you know, how many of these things are real? Because they're all talking about you know, this thing happened to me, and how many of them are just, you know, fanciful stories that you created, or do you not want to like expose which are which?
I think I would say that unless it's like very obvious that it's ridiculous, that it didn't happen. Like it might sound crazy, but if it sounds crazy and it's plausible, it did happen. If it's just insane, like there was one iPhone video where I got like sucked into an alternate dimension. Obviously that never happened, but anything that could be plausible but maybe sounds ridiculous is definitely true.
Is there an episode, or are there a couple episodes that are your personal favorites?
I would say the first thing that comes to mind is the Babysitter series, only because that blew up my channel. Like I got 500,000 subscribers in like 2 weeks, and story-wise, it's not my favorite video, but just the fact that it gave me a career, I'll forever be thankful for that, I guess. I'm looking at the catalog here to try and see. I made a video called A Holiday Message to Mom and Dad, where I sang a song about how my parents should turn the heat on when I visit for Christmas. And ever since that video came out, the heat's always on. So I like that video a lot. And then, yeah, those are the ones that come to mind for sure. Wait, someone asked if my dad is a huge money saver, and yes, he is 100%. Are you going to make more videos for an older audience? That was a thing that came from touring and seeing how young the audience was and not expecting that. So we've started to make the videos a little bit more adult, not because that's necessarily what's the word I'm looking for? With animation, like it tends to lend itself to people thinking it's for kids. And so I feel like with animation, you have to try a little harder to prove that you are more for an adult audience. And so if it was a video, I don't think I'd try so hard, but with the animation, we're trying to make it clear that it's for an older, like high school and older, instead of like preschoolers, basically. So I don't know if it's yeah, that's the answer. These are great questions, by the way, guys. Thanks for doing these. And literally just by being here watching this, you're proving that because there's people that could have come to this that didn't, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So for sure, just by being here, you're proving you have, you're willing to put in that extra effort to make it. So you should definitely keep that in mind as you move forward.
Okay, so there are a couple questions that I like to kind of close these things with. And, I'm asking kind of people to look back and think about sort of, what they would tell the younger version if you could like send a time capsule back to teenage Alex. What would you tell yourself?
You're doing a good job and just keep trying every day. Yeah.
Excellent. And then the other thing that is more specific to those who we talked to who have passed through the halls of PVPA, I'm curious about the things about PVPA that helped you the most in terms of what you got from your time there that helped prime you for your creative path, and what are ways that we could have served you better?
I mean, I have just fond memories of PVPA, so I don't. What served me well at PVPA, because I went to regular high school as well, is that it was way more centered around the arts and just being around people that thought like I did and were excited about creating. That helped me the most, I would say. They say you're only as good as like your 5 closest friends, but I think that's true for like work too. Like just surround yourself with people that do the kind of work that you want to do. I'd say that's one of the most important things with your career.
Awesome. All right then. So I want to, before we kind of shift gears, I want to thank Alex so much for taking the time to share a little bit and give us a chance to connect with one of our own who's doing awesome work out in the world. And we really appreciate you taking your time and connecting with our growing artists and creatives. So thank you, Alex.
Yeah, no problem, guys. You're at a great school, and I think you're going to go on to do great things. You just got to try.